Hey, good that you're watching or actually listening because we're not live. Wow. That's the great intro. Great intro. Hey, Luke, save me, please. Save me.
Keeping it. We're keeping it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a busy few days, so we have a ton to discuss, but that's also why I'm maybe not fully focused. I've been up for like a few for late hours working
Yeah.
on those Ubisoft and Xbox videos, but I gotta be honest with you, Luke. This is the first time in a long time that it really feels like E3
Yeah.
again.
No, I
Don't you
totally
agree?
agree. I totally agree. It's so refreshing to just
Yeah.
get some reveals where I'm like, wow. And I said this like last week's podcast where I was like, I just miss that feeling of seeing a reveal and being like, I cannot wait to get that. Or I don't know how they did that. Or, that sense of
Yeah.
amazement used to be, maybe it's just rose tinted glasses, but it feels like that used to be the thing that happened at E3. There was at least one or two things that blew you away. And it's been a while since we felt that, but gotta hand it to Microsoft. They came out swinging. And even Ubisoft, which surprised everybody with their big Star Wars announcement at the end, even they blew people away, which is just stunning. But I gotta hand it to them. They pulled it off.
Yeah, for sure. It really feels like we're hitting that point in the new console generation where like all the sort of launch window games, of course, we've been in this generation for some time, but at one point you will see what these new consoles finally bring. And I think that Star Wars game in particular really showed that, hey, this is not possible on PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah.
And I think Starfield obviously as well. So of course every week we're live. We're still like figuring out the date, but it seems like we're sticking to the Wednesday from now on. Of course, thanks to Summer Game Fest, things kind of shifted. But Wednesday seems to be the great spot. We will of course be live every week on Luke Stevens live channel, so you can watch us live there or pick us up everywhere on any podcast service you enjoy. So thanks for listening, thanks for joining, and we're now actually not doing it live because Luke has a very good reason for that.
Yeah.
I mean, people probably know, but
Yeah, just in case you're not aware somehow, even though I talk about it all the time, my wife is very, very pregnant. We are actually at this point well past our due date. So I had me and my team had worked overtime, had gone in and created a bunch of extra videos and stuff. Ubisoft was super cool and let me see the Assassin's Creed stuff ahead of time, like 2 weeks ago, so I could record stuff to have it ready. So I've been sitting on all of that for a while, and now like in those videos I say I probably have a baby right now when you're seeing this video, because we were supposed to, but we still don't. So as of right now, still no baby, probably in the early stages, but we do have an induction scheduled for like 7 a.m. on Thursday. So.
If this is like a very short episode, you know why.
Yeah, if all of a sudden I'm like, I'm so sorry, I have to go. Then you'll know. But everything is good. Everything is fine.
Okay,
it's
great.
just things are thrown for a loop. So it's hard to just sit down and have like a live show where, I'm locked in place for 2 hours when you got to be ready at any moment. So
For sure. Let's just jump straight into it. So we can kind of. So the idea kind of is to just go over your Xbox first, because that's of course happened on the Sunday, and then Ubisoft the day after. Talk about our highlights and I think our overall sort of impressions. What are our takeaways like for the brand? What does the future look like? And I also put up a tweet. I'm not sure if you saw it, for like the sort of I like to console wars goes a bit too far, but it's still like two competing brands, PlayStation and Xbox. And I thought these two shows showed a completely different direction for both of them, which I think is very interesting. So want to discuss that, and then we will do the same for Ubisoft. So talk about Avatar, Star Wars, the Assassin's Creed stuff, and I think also about an interesting and positive, like on one hand, Ubisoft, they could only go up, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're now seeing what they've been like working on for the last few years, that it's finally paying off, it feels like. So where do you want to start with Xbox?
I'd say let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. I was ready for them to come out with a couple of, like, maybe they start with Forza or just something that's kind of a layup. You get some quick applause and then you kind of ease into it. But no, they came out swinging for the fences with a Fable announcement with in-game footage that people still, I even saw somebody on Twitter, they had photoshopped this little watermark at the bottom and photoshopped this out and put in CGI footage, like a PlayStation fanboy or somebody did it to try and present it like it was not real gameplay. But that's like, this apparently is in-game, and I think it looks tremendous. There's a few quirky things here and there, but it really is a very visually impressive game. And the scope and scale of just this set piece is amazing. It reminded me of that section in God of War Ragnarok where you're fighting with Angrboda in the house. So I thought that this was awesome, and it gets me really, really excited for the scope of what they're trying to do with this new Fable, and that alone is very, very exciting.
I personally thought the sort of balance between, because for me Fable is mostly like a combat sort of fantasy RPG, and they were really leaning more heavily on the humor part, like stealing a drink from someone at the bar, and someone like, I think, just like calling someone out on the street, and then the main character's like, what the heck? And of course all British. But we did see like some sword fighting and some like fireball that was sent to an enemy. And I think because we only saw just like a small bit of that, that's where I think a lot of the confusion is coming from. I wish we would have seen more of that, because it will probably be another year at the earliest that we will see this game again. But I still thought it was really cool that we finally got an update. But it felt to me more like, hey, it's still alive, and we got a lot of humor. And
and I think this did a much better job of showing the tone, of showing the style. This isn't going to be exactly in line with like Fable 3. It's not just a direct sort of sequel stylistically or anything from that, because that was very stylized. Whereas this had like a full body scans of the actors playing each individual character. So it's very, very intriguing to me. I thought that this was a really good trailer. Surprisingly, sorry to bounce around a little, but surprisingly, a trailer that I thought was quite lackluster was that Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 trailer. That one, I don't know what was going on with it. Are you with me on this? Was it not weird?
For me, for sure, because it feels like we've seen this game now 3 times. This was the third time, and all the trailers have been the same. It really feels like they're like, if they only finished a few cutscenes, and that's kind of what they have for the game right now, because we of course now saw Senua like walk through a cave, like there was some control. Someone pushed the analog stick a bit, and then at one point there was a cutscene where she was like touching the water, and weird stuff was happening around her. And I did like the sort of course, the audio design and how that even came through in the trailer. That was really cool, because Sony is really like talking about their or like their audio technology, their 3D audio, which Microsoft just pulled off in a trailer for every headset, which was kind of cool. But one of my things with the first Hellblade was that I did not like the puzzle elements. So I just want to see what the moment-to-moment gameplay is. And it feels like this game has been in development for a long time, and they're still saying 2024. And with a trailer like this, I think it's like end of 2024 at the earliest.
With any trailer, it seems to me that the goal should be to communicate to the viewer something that's beneficial to the marketing cycle. You tell them what the game is going to be, why they should be excited when it's coming, what makes this stand out, whether that's the graphics or audio design, whatever. You like, trailers need to do something. And I felt that this trailer didn't give us anything in terms of the audio. I thought it was cool, but it didn't do anything we haven't literally heard before. No. Visually, I thought it looked about on par with what we saw with that last trailer with the giant in the cave, which is good, but it's not any more impressive than that. I would actually say this trailer is visually less impressive, because it's just her standing in a cave with a bunch of weird throbbing anus looking things in the corners. And I just don't know what it was supposed to be. I kept waiting for like a monster to come climbing out of the water or something, And it just never happened. It's just her talking to
I've-
a reflection in a puddle.
Yeah, I think this turned more people off than actually on. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people that actually were already on board, they were like, "Oh yeah, this looks awesome," and like maybe they don't want to see more because they will be day one anyways. But I think this game, with probably the budget that it gets over the first one, which was like it was still like AAA but made by a very small team. Now they got the backing from Microsoft. They really gotta hit it home, and of course, when the game comes out, a lot of people will still try it out, but. Yeah, this trailer did not sell it at all, sadly.
Yeah. It was one that I was assuming would just be one of their capstones. Oh, yeah, they're going to put this out and everybody's going to love the trailer. And amazingly enough, Hellblade, pretty disappointing showing, if I'm being real. But what was another trailer that they put out that you found compelling that was not a flop?
Clockwork Revolution. It's the new game from In Exile. That's from the Wasteland creators. I always see the Wasteland games that don't look very appealing to me. I think it's like a top-down sort of RPG, and they always get like very high reviews. But this game is basically BioShock Infinite with a huge focus on time manipulation, and it's like a steampunk city, and we see like two versions of the city, probably based on some choices that we maybe make. First-person shooters. The enemy design looked very cool. You have sort of similar powers that you do with your left hand while holding the gun in the right. And I thought this just really like I can still like visualize this trailer in my head, even though I haven't seen it for some time now. And I'm just curious. Like this looks like that perfect Game Pass game that like this is like a game that I want to play. I'm like, yeah, tell me more. They did say. It's red, or like they did teases with like, sort of anticipation for a release date reveal, and then it said when it or like in due time or something like it's ready in due time. But yeah, I want to see more. I think it could be really cool.
I agree. I thought that this was a big surprise. It definitely looks heavily inspired by BioShock Infinite, which always is just amazing to me that game came out a decade ago as of right now, and. There's still no direct sequel after a decade, and it was still like highly praised. Didn't it win like Game of the Year? I know that was before the Game Awards, but it won a ton of Game of the Year awards. It was very well received.
I mean, Ken Levine is now doing the Judas game. Like that's his first game after BioShock Infinite, and that's probably like 2024, 2025 or something.
It's crazy that it's been that long, but. Now we're finally seeing somebody take direct inspiration from it, sort of a spiritual successor in a way, and I am here for it. I think it looks very, very good, if I'm being completely frank. Another one that was highly stylized that I thought was good was the second thing that they showed, which was South of Midnight. And this was a game I still am not really sure what it like even is, if I'm being real, but I know stylistically, artistically, I really love the sort of stop motion claymation look of like classical Tim Burton films or the recent Pinocchio from Guillermo del Toro. And this is seemingly a game built on that same art style, and I'm very interested. Again, I don't really know what this means. We haven't seen a lot of information on it, but it has piqued my interest.
They're describing it on the Xbox like Wire blog that it's a spellbinding third-person action adventure game. We of course saw at the end of the trailer like Hazel, the main character, like do some grab a device or something, and then preparing some magical abilities for the creature that would appear behind her. So this is from the We Happy Few team.
Yeah.
So and like that was the best part about We Happy Few as well, like the style of that world. And I think it's cool that they are going for a completely different direction, but with the same like impact. Like that's this another trailer that I can immediately imagine.
Yeah.
And I wish we didn't see more though, because We Happy Few I think came out in 2016 or something. So they're taking their time. But yeah, this feels like a game that will be shown again next year and then probably come out in the next few months after that.
Yeah.
Or something.
I agree.
Could be really cool.
They've done a really good job of setting themselves up. I think they learned the hard way that showing stuff like this is releasing in the next 12 months or next 6 months. They realize that probably actually doesn't work long term, especially when you can't hit those dates. So
They did give a year though for Avowed. What did you think about that?
Yeah, Avowed, I've seen probably, it's got to be the one that, I think this is the one that probably was the most conflicting for people, because a lot of people were very excited for Avowed, seeing it as, oh, it's Obsidian's version of Elder Scrolls, basically, is sort of how they imagined it. And when we saw it, it's stylized, but it also, if the style, it's hard to describe. It basically just looks like kind of a double A third-person adventure game, or what was that game that came from Focus Entertainment that it was like kind of pirate themed and you ran around?
Oh,
like,
Greedfall?
Greedfall. Yeah, it reminded me of Greedfall, where I'm sure it's going to be good and it's going to scratch an itch, but stylistically and visually, I don't think it quite lived up to what people were hoping for.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Another one that I would throw in also from Obsidian is the Outer Worlds. Like that's what they're basically saying. It's less like Elder Scrolls, more like Outer Worlds. And I think that's where the double A comes in as well. Outer Worlds, of course, was published by 2K's they're like indie label. And like still set the rule, like people were not expecting a Fallout game. That's I think where the expectations went wrong. Like the first cinematic, they should have gone for this art style already instead of this very realistic, cool looking sword and magical hand. And then the like this looked very realistic, and then it feels like a downgrade, even though the other thing was a cinematic trailer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of a bad thing on their part, but I still think looks like a pretty big game. They actually had the extended showcase just a few hours ago, where they also noted that there will be companion characters, wide range of combat options and builds, which they kind of showed as well. Of course, first-person combat. And yeah, it's set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, so there will be some things for people that like those games, although it's not required to like play those games to understand the story or anything. But yeah, I think it's another one of those awesome Game Pass games, right?
Yeah. And with that sort of double A charm, some people would be turned off by that and wouldn't pay the $60, $70 to buy it day one. But because it's on Game Pass, try it. If you get hooked after an hour, awesome. You just found yourself another 100-hour game or 50-hour game, whatever it is, to get into. But I do totally agree. I think that first trailer set the expectation that this was going to be a little more grounded, a little more realistic. And even something as simple as the art style of the logo has changed. Like previously it was much more three-dimensional, and now it's sort of this 2D flat thing with a blue hazy background. So even that changed, and people interpret that as a downgrade, which whether that's fair or not, it's just what people perceive it to be.
They probably should have, like, after that reveal, immediately been like, hey, this is more like Outer Worlds instead of Elder Scrolls. Like, manage the expectations up front. But they kind of let it, like, live its own life, and people were, like, expecting something else. Well, on the other hand, it's pretty obvious. Like, their Obsidian is doing, like, 3 projects. Or they had the Pentiment as well. They have, like, a Grounded team. They have a Outer Worlds 2 team and an Avowed team. I would imagine that Avowed probably has the largest group of developers. Obsidian is big, but still, if they were making like an Elder Scrolls type game, everyone at the studio had to be working on this.
Yeah.
Which was never going to be the case.
Well, and it's just important to understand that Obsidian is like an RPG developer. They are guys that are trying to build expansive narratives and interwoven stories with consequence to your actions. And like, in many ways, Skyrim allows for that, but Skyrim is more of a sandbox game than an RPG game. I think a lot of people mislabel it as a true through and through narrative RPG. I wouldn't call it that at all. But
no, for
sure. There's just so much in this showcase that it's
But I think to kind of use this as a segue, because we've been talking about games that are all far away. Fable, South Midnight, the Revolution game, what was it called? The Clockwork Revolution, and now Avowed. So those are all like not 2023. Like what Xbox actually showed in 2023 was that they, for example, got Payday 3 on Game Pass day one, which of course not an exclusive then, but still big deal. launching in the same week as Lies of P. Two big Game Pass titles. That's pretty big. And of course, like Forza October 10th. But to be fair, like I really think that they could have delayed everything, and if they just launched with Starfield, nobody. That's the same as PlayStation after God of War releasing nothing for like till Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
if you don't sound forspoken.
I agree. I don't think they needed to, and I've been shocked at how overwhelmingly positive the reaction to Starfield has been. I think what they showed in a lot of ways was very impressive and calmed a lot of fears. They showed clear upgrades to, say, character models, and like facial animations seemed to be improved. Gunplay either was shown better, like they framed it better, or it just is running better than it was last year.
And third person looks great. Like that's also always a thing. Like you can play third person in the Bethesda games, but now it's like third person shooting. Yeah, that's fine. That's
the
great.
character angle never lines up, so they're running slightly diagonally while moving this way. Yeah, it always drives me crazy. But I thought it looked really good in general. There were a couple of things about Starfield, to just slide into that I find utterly baffling, and I need you to tell me in the sweetest way, be gentle with me if I'm being unreasonable here. I watched the showcase looking primarily for a few things. For one, we wanted to know what the frame rate was. For those of you not aware, it's been confirmed 4K 30 on Xbox Series X and 1440p 30 on the One.
Did we place a bet
Series
last
S.
week, or
did we? I don't remember if we actually bet anything, but we should have. We should have. Because I was wrong. I thought that they for sure were going to come up and be like, yep, 30, you're seeing everything in 30, and there's going to be a performance option. There is not. Todd framed it as a creative, stylistic choice. They wanted to be true to the vision, and they didn't want to cut any corners and have to strip stuff away, which...
even seems that on PC it's gonna be hard to reach the 60. That's at least what my takeaway was.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like it's going to be extremely CPU bound, and what that translates to is you're going to need a supercomputer to get this thing up towards 60. It's just the fact of the matter. So whether that's because whether they could have optimized it more, or modders will be able to figure out a way to do that, I'm sure eventually they will, but do not expect, even on like a mid-tier PC, to be running this thing at 4K 60 whatever. It's just not going to happen.
At least we can on PC like 1080p and then try the 60 thing. So that's because like I played Redfall on PC as well for the same reason, and I'm probably going to do Starfield on PC then too.
Yeah, same. But one of the other things I was looking for is something they've been very hush about, because I think it's sort of a bummer. And that is that there seems to be no in-planet flight with your ship. Now, to me, this is a baffling omission. It seems like some people agree with me. Other people, especially fans of Bethesda stuff, say it's really not a big deal. However, to me, it seems like a big deal, because what they're doing, allow me to make my case, they're giving you a planet. Allow me to correct myself. They're giving you 1,000 planets that you can land on using their little UI where you select a landing point and then it lands there. However, if you land and you want to run 5 kilometers that way, or go 5 kilometers over, you have to run on foot, or you have to seemingly go back to your ship, move the fast travel drop point, and then it fast travels you over there, just plopping your ship down, then you get out. And that to me seems so bafflingly stupid when you have a spaceship that can fly, that you can't just hop in it and fly 5 kilometers over. Like, it's a planet-sized map. And people are like, well, Luke, I played Skyrim. I've played a lot of other games where I run around for miles and miles. It's not a big deal at all. Have you ever played Minecraft? You can run endlessly in that game. I'm like, yeah, it's even in Minecraft. It's not 1,000 planet-sized maps. Like, this is just fundamentally different, which is the point. And that's why all of these other games like No Man's Sky, Star Citizen, they give you your ship that you can fly around the planet, or they also give you like rovers or little speed bikes like in Star Wars to zip around.
that would be a great solution, because right now that's one of my like sort of things where I'm like kind of worried about, is that we still see this character walk in this empty like 1,000 planets. I never understand why that's appealing to anyone.
Yeah.
I would prefer 100 planets that actually have things going on. Now they still are saying that it seems like on every one of these 1,000 planets there's something going on, but in the gameplay we still see a lot of like which makes sense, like that it's like an empty planet, but it's not like fun for gameplay wise. So I guess you are right. I didn't think about that, and I think like a mount or something would have fixed it already.
It seems really weird. People like started smoking the copium immediately and going, well, Luke, they probably just are going to announce speed bikes and stuff later. They're probably, I'm like, no, dude, if that was in the game, they would have shown it in this 45-minute gameplay review. It would have been hard not to if it were in the game. So it's clear to me that Bethesda couldn't get the data streaming working fast enough for you to travel on the planet, flying around, exploring. And that to me is very concerning when you're talking about a map the size of a planet and then 1,000 of those.
Yeah, but do we know how big these planets actually are, though? That's kind of still the thing. If everything is just easily walkable, because my thing is why I don't mind this that much is, for me it's basically 1,000 separate open worlds that you can just go to, and I think all the other things that they're doing, where on every planet you can build this home base. So that's probably another fast travel point that you can make. Like if you can make on a planet multiple fast travel points that you can just zip around to, that would also really help. But I think that while they are making a space game, they're more making a Bethesda RPG that is set in space instead of a really space adventure like a No Man's Sky or Star Citizen. So that's what I think, where like I don't mind it, because when I like saw them that they were able to board every enemy ship, I was like, I did not expect that, because that's insane. Like I can already think of the insane possibility. Of course, every interior of the ship will probably look kind of the same, but like them being able to steal that ship and use, like there were so many other things that I did not expect, that the other things that I maybe hope for, I don't mind, because we got way more of the other stuff and it all seems really fleshed out. Like I'm already overwhelmed. And maybe when we play the game, you are right, and it will be one of the most requested features, although I don't think it's something they can like implement.
Yeah.
Although maybe like that the jetpack has like more fuel, so you can like maybe fly around a bit faster. Stuff like that could already help.
Yeah, but even that, I saw people bringing up the jetpack, but they showed the jetpack is like a branch within a skill tree. Not everybody seemingly is going to have the jetpack, at least in its full capacity. So there's going to be a handful of players, a good number of players probably, if they don't choose to go with the jetpack, that are going to have to run around
like
on
a hover thing as well.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's very interesting to me. I just looked it up. Like we spoke about 1,000 planets. How do you make 1,000 planets interesting, for one? And how do you make exploring the planet, even if they're smaller size planets, they're not like full planets, kind of like No Man's Sky, where they're planets, but they're small. Like how do you make exploring each of those interesting? Specifically exploring, where you're out running, seemingly on foot, looking for points of interest. In Fallout 4, according to the Reddit community, I can't access the full page because, of course, they're on strike right now. Yeah. But they have like the preview saved, so you can see that. According to the subreddit for Fallout 4, there are, in the base game of Fallout 4, 251 map markers of points of interest within the game. With the DLCs, it goes up to 324 map marked points of interest. That game is pretty dense. There's a lot in that game. And that still, with all the DLC and everything, is less than a third of the total number of planets. If they took the same points of interest, scattered them throughout the 1,000 planets in Starfield, they still would have 2/3 of the planets that have nothing on them. So that's where they rely on procedurally generated stuff, on procedurally placed little bases and things. And if people already were starting to feel like Fallout 4 was getting a little repetitive, I have to wonder how they've magically changed it in Starfield.
Yeah, I think also like if you're like, okay, I'm gonna boot up Starfield tonight, I'm gonna just explore, and then you go to 3 separate planets, which is like a load screen and stuff like that all the time, and every time you land on it, which probably gonna take like a few minutes to get around and walk around, like maybe half an hour or something to really figure out what's going on in this planet, and it's like empty, and then you repeat this a few times, you're burned out. So but they will probably have like things like the main story. So I probably for the main story we're just going to 20 planets that are like fully featured that we also saw
Yeah.
in the presentation. And then just I think they mostly want to go for the idea that the world is kind of endless.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will have to wait and see. I do wanna, because we're like kind of like, it's of course good to have the critiques, but I do want to like focus on what the many positives, because I think
Yeah.
it's like there are like way more positives in my opinion, because I really went in thinking not really into space games. I am still like, okay, follow, like Bethesda's kind of on a bad streak, but it's what Bethesda has always been. They release many games that don't sell well. They have like their audiences, and some of their games are really great, like some of the arcane games, Wolfenstein, Doom, and stuff like that. But they're still like relatively small in the mainstream audience. And then they release like a Fallout, an Elder Scrolls, or a Starfield, and that's I think where they fund all their other projects with.
Yeah.
And we saw that again. And it's been so long that I just kind of forgot how big Fallout 4 was. But like I'm getting even messages from people that are like, I don't have an Xbox. Like, what? How I want to play this game, and I really feel that for the Sony games, you kind of know what you're getting into, and those games are great. Like Spider-Man 2, and even God of War. I heard some people that were like, yeah, this was a great it was exactly what I expected, really high quality. But Starfield is really trying to do something else, and I think it can reach Elden Ring levels, especially with it being on Game Pass in terms of popularity, if it's really as good as what they showed. Because we've been here before, 16 times the details, right? On the other hand, they seemed really confident, and that they like took 45 minutes and showed like this much footage. Like I don't even know where to start, but
there's a ton
I
of
think it's
really
good.
impressive stuff. As I said at the top, there are things not just that looked cool, but there are things that they've clearly made huge improvements on from the last time we saw the game. I think the gunplay looked way better. I thought space combat looked pretty fluid, honestly, compared to even like No Man's Sky, which has been out forever, or Star Citizen, which is massive and very realistic and grounded. And they started describing like changing the energy distributions of your ship. Things like all of this stuff was just awesome. Ship customization, I know that maybe that's me just being a super nerd. I find the ship customization stuff very interesting. I have very little interest in the base building, but building my own Optimus Prime bot like they showed is very interesting. You better believe that most of this game is just going to whittle down to people making flying penises at the end of the day. That's just how these games always end up. But I thought that tons of this looked amazing. The reason I bring up those things are because I hear nobody talking about them. And even when I bring it up, like I made a video right after the showcase, knowing I'd probably get some flack for it because everybody's riding high on the copium from it, or not copium, riding high on the just high of a cool showcase and the hype of it. And I come in and I just want to be like, hey, listen, it's not the second coming. It's okay. The game looks great, but it's not magic. You know, it does have some limitations. I want to be clear with what those limitations are so you don't start to get crazy out of control with your hype where you just start to lose sense with all reality. But that's not to say that the game doesn't look great in a lot of ways.
We should not fall for the same traps as Cyberpunk, because when I was watching it, it kind of reminded me a bit of that as well. I do think people played it at Summer Game Fest though. Starfield a bit. So that makes me hopeful, and that they were really reiterating this release date, and also that there's even early access if you buy a more expensive edition, which like
that surprised me.
And from a business perspective, that's so smart, because then people who would have maybe gotten it on Game Pass are now like, screw it, I now have to buy the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I can totally see them do that for every big game, because smart. Then, it's very smart. But damn, I can see people get like, I also said like, September, October is crowded in terms of games. But if only Starfield came out, yeah, it would have been fine. Like, it
Yeah.
really seems like you can get lost in it if it's really that good. Because, like you said, especially looking at like Redfall that we just had, that Bethesda also put out, and they did release an update, I think, yesterday. But that was like the first time they actually talked about the game post launch. And of course, 76, Wolfenstein Youngblood. Like, I really hope that this shows once again, okay, Bethesda Game Studios, they still got it, because yeah, we were kind of curious about that. But this made me very hopeful, and yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I will be playing it on Xbox, though. I was happy. I was like, I'm finally happy that I bought an Xbox, but I will be playing it on PC.
Yeah. No,
It is what it is, though.
They really, I think, showed a lot of cool stuff, and they got people really excited. And as I've said before, whenever a like savant of an industry treats something as their passion project and gets super excited about it, that gets me super excited. This is Todd Howard's dream game he's been talking about since the 90s. And he said, I've always wanted to make this, but we just couldn't because we didn't have the tech, and now we do. And that gets me excited, because love or hate Todd and all of his sweet little lies, he is a phenomenal game designer. You don't get to where he is with his track record of Fallout 4, of Fallout 3, of the Elder Scrolls, of all these major franchises, without being really gifted at this. And so I hope that these decisions he's made to just not have like in-planet flight, to, you know, lock it at 30. I hope that all of these, once we get the game, we're like, okay, yeah, no, he knew what he was doing. That's my hope. Because, of course, we want more amazing games. Who wouldn't want to be obsessed with another Bethesda game? Like, of course.
Yeah. And it's really going to show, to also kind of segue to like the overall Xbox thing before we're going to switch to Ubisoft. Like, I think this is the first time, Starfield will be the first time that we really see what Game Pass can mean for the launch of the game. Because this game was going to be like selling 10 million copies without Game Pass. But now anyone who just like gets, I mean, I think they dropped the trials, but still like $15 or something, and you can play this game for a month. I mean, I want to see those numbers. I still think on Steam it's still gonna be like 200,000, 300,000 concurrent, maybe even more. Like Cyberpunk hit 1 million or something.
Yeah,
like, it's still gotta be huge on any other platform. I'm just curious what Game Pass will do and how that will transform, because now everyone, there's like the barrier is so low to try this game, and everyone will.
It's going to be fascinating, yeah. And I think this is exactly what Microsoft has been hoping for, and especially targeting more casual gamers. Their partnership with Samsung for their TVs, that those trailers were all over the showcase. That I think is a bigger deal than people are giving it credit for. I think there's going to be a lot of more casual players who see, ooh, I can play Starfield, the guys that made Fallout 4 and Skyrim. I can play that on my TV. That's amazing. And there will be people that do it. And speaking of like the broad, like cross-cultural support and interest in this, I actually saw a TikTok of the comedian Bobby Lee talking on some podcast, and he was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to cancel a bunch of shows, and I have a tour that I was gonna go on, but I think I'm gonna cancel it. And they're like, why? He's like, well, because Starfield's coming out later this year. And I was like, okay, when we're at the point where comedians are canceling comedy shows because they want to stay home and play games, that's how you know that we've crossed into the mainstream. So it's gonna be huge. I'm very interested in it, and I mean, I'm buckled up. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of like what I thought, because we only discussed here the highlights from the Xbox shows were single player, narrative driven, open world type games, or sometimes not open world, but still like Xbox, where they were like banking hard on Forza Horizon, obviously, and they still have those games, and Halo. They're now like, this show only revealed from their first party studios single player games. And it's so fascinating to see that, where Sony's showcase from their first party studios, so Haven, the Firewalk, Bungie, and they are publishing Helldivers too. Like, all those studios, like the 4 studios that actually revealed a new game, were all live services, while Sony is known for the single player games and Microsoft mostly for the live service first party. I thought that was interesting, and that not to get ahead of it, but like Ubisoft as well, they are now also stepping away. Like, they're still trying, of course, XDeviant, but and Skull and Bones, but like that's not catching on. While everyone is loving their Star Wars game, cautiously optimistic about the Avatar game, and of course Mirage. Yeah, people think that's looking great. Like, it really seems that these publishers are finally looking at single player games not as like a thing of the past, but more as a safer bet to get a return on investment without having to like also have like a robust post launch. Because it sounds amazing if you have a live service game that people will buy skins for $20 and then 3 skins is the price of one game. Like, that sounds amazing, but to get to that point is like a huge investment.
Well, and even then, sometimes you just get in at the wrong time, or you have a bad slew of press that comes out beforehand. Like, I totally agree that, amazingly enough, single player games are starting to look like the much safer bet, because everybody just assumed live service is where all the money is. So we throw out 4 or 5 attempts at live service, one of them sticks, and it pays for all of the others and then some. And so then we're profitable. But they're just starting to realize, when you look back at the track record of Ubisoft over the last 5 years of attempted live service games, from like weird, wacky roller champions or like whatever else they're doing, you realize just how many fails they've had and how many tens upon tens, if not hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars they've wasted on projects that are dead on arrival. And when they listen to players and they just give them a single player game that they want, all of a sudden they do really well. It's amazing.
Yeah, it seems so easy, right? But still, they're of course blinded. But I mean, the chase towards live service will continue. But like the sort of chart that we discussed from Sony for 2025, how they think that 60% of all their sort of money is going into live service. I mean, they still like showed that their first party games, like, that will be the same investment. But you could also spin it another way, like maybe the single player games would get way more investment if they did not spend as much on live service. So Sony, it's so interesting that they're now also going in different directions. And what do you think of my theory that basically Game Pass is Microsoft's live service, and the content updates are the single player games? And I actually think that putting a live service game on Game Pass, that is probably not that smart, because you want the big enough audience. Free to play, I mean, Halo showed that is more the way to go. And the chance that a live service game is great at launch, so the most important moment for a Game Pass release is like way smaller than when you put like a cool single player 10-hour game on it. Then it feels also more like a show, something you like watch 10 episodes in a sense of, and then finish, and then you're happy with.
I think that's exactly accurate. I think the steady influx of $10 to $15 a month from Game Pass from each gamer is very, very valuable when you compare that with like the value proposition that they can offer to developers, especially third-party developers. Because my understanding is third-party developers and publishers are compensated at an hourly rate. So however many hours of a game you get, like a player plays, is how they're compensated. Just like with music streaming, people on Spotify are compensated by total minutes listened to their content. So it's going to be, it seems as though it's good for the publishers and developers because they can make money pretty easily. And it's good for Microsoft because they only have to pay that out if players are actually engaging with that stuff. If somebody is buying like Game Pass for $15 on Ultimate on PC and they don't play any games through it for a month, they just are keeping that cash because they're not playing these third-party games, so they don't have to pay them out. Could have changed, but as of like a year ago, my understanding is that's how Microsoft paid out.
I think they're also like paying upfront, like giving some like huge chunks of money upfront to get these games there, because I think all the publishers are looking at it. Okay, if we put it on Game Pass, we'll lose. Like Payday 3 is gonna lose full game sales on Xbox because it's on Game Pass. So I think Microsoft, they probably have some like estimate of what that's going to be, and then Microsoft has to be, okay, we're gonna pay that and maybe that hourly fee or whatever.
Right, exactly.
To make it worth it for them. And for a game like Payday, that's actually great. Like, get more people playing, and then hopefully they buy like a new mask for your character or whatever. And then support or like get money that way. But I thought that was interesting how we're really seeing this non-E3, this summer Game Fest, how single player games are back. Like, we didn't even talk about the Cyberpunk DLC that's also like on Steam now, the best selling. Like, people are so hyped for that. Starfield, like Fable, of course, like all these games. And I don't know if you're ready to go to Ubisoft, but all their games are single player or like sort of Far Cry, like the co-op, of course, like Avatar, Prince of Persia, they of course have going. It's all safer bets. Like, they really are like, okay, what has made us money looking back? Only Rainbow Six was kind of their popular live service, and that's where they were kind of blinded by. And then they went with the Ghost Recon live service, Watch Dogs Legion online, and all that stuff that just didn't work out.
Yeah, and it feels like forever. Amazingly enough, it was sort of a quick experiment in some way for them to just be like, yeah, we're going to try all of these spin-offs for live service games and for these multiplayer games and co-ops and things. But a lot of those decisions were made within like a year period. And then because games take forever to make, we just got like a steady drip of like 3, 4, 5 years of garbage that nobody wanted.
Yeah.
When really it was probably leadership 5, 6 years ago that decided to greenlight this stuff, and we're just now getting out of those decisions. It's why high-level managers are... excuse me, I just swallowed my throat. It's why like high-level managers are so important. I read a book by... or not by Jeff Bezos, about Jeff Bezos in college. And he described his job as an executive. He was like, no, my job as the CEO is not to make a bunch of really good decisions for the like day-to-day minutia of the business. He's like, my job is to make 5 to 10 amazingly well thought out and well justified decisions for the business 5 years from now. He's like, my job performance can only really be graded 5 years or 5 years after the fact, because that's when my decisions come into effect. And with Ubisoft's leadership, you can see that decisions they made back in 2017, we're still dealing with the fallout from that. And it's why I'm so, let's just say, I'm not in love with the leadership at Ubisoft.
But they changed that up. They did change that up.
They shook up a lot. The Guillemot brothers are still there.
That's of course true. But like in terms of creatives, it seems that they changed some things around, and they were really like, because I think like Assassin's Creed really showed to them, wait, single player games, it's still where the money is at, and we can like turn that into some sort of service as well.
Yeah.
So that really helped. And then like now it's always like they always go a bit too far. Like now they're applying error. Like, okay, Assassin's Creed works. Far Cry, you're now like Assassin's Creed as well. And even Avatar too, if you want to jump into that.
Yeah, let's jump into that.
When I heard that you can customize your flying mount, I was immediately like, item packs. And you never guessed it. It's like the ship in Odyssey, right? Where you have like a deluxe pack, and then your mount is like a weird helmet and some armor, and that's like probably one of the cosmetics you can also buy when the game launches, because it's a first-person game. But yeah, we still see, of course, our character third person on a mount, and they probably did that also to show the cosmetics, while for example in a Far Cry you're still first person. So I thought that was interesting. But overall, the game, we finally saw it. I overall have a weird feeling about it, because this was the only game that they did not show at any other showcase. I thought it was interesting how Mirage was at the PlayStation showcase, Prince of Persia at Summer Game Fest, and Xbox got Star Wars, and Avatar they were holding that to themselves. I don't think there was any event for the game. Like, you saw the Mirage stuff beforehand. I got an invite for that as well. And then after the show, they even did like a Star Wars event where they did not really reveal a lot, but they were probably like, yeah, we have to give some more space to that. It's coming out on December 7th, though, this year, Avatar. That really feels like the last possible date in 2023 that you can still release a game.
Yeah.
Because after that, you're in the Christmas period, and nobody, like everyone who bought Christmas presents has something already by that point.
Right.
So there are some weird things about the game, but I still think it's like why you watch the Avatar movies as well. It looks pretty. Yeah. And that game does at least seems to nail that.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I totally agree. There's just something about it, because I'm looking at it right now. There's just something about it that doesn't feel like it totally clicks. Like, I'm not really sure what you are going to do in this other than fly around on your mount and then maybe fight encampments. It does seem to just be like an Avatar coat of paint on a Far Cry game. And for some people, that's going to be more than enough. Maybe that is more than enough, but I'm just not sure. It's really, really up in the air for me. This could be one of my favorite games of that holiday period. It could also just be like the quintessential 7 out of 10. It's fine, kind of game. But maybe for Ubisoft, that's all they really need is just a fine game on a major IP that they can sell in huge quantities.
Yeah. I mean, if you like, and that's kind of crazy, but actually just before we recorded, they announced that the movies are delayed. So that's
really?
actually, I think, So the third one was going to come next year, so 2024. It's now end of 2025. So I think that's a big hit for this game as well, because I mean, we're still kind of high on the previous movie, so they really have to kind of hit this date. But with it also, again, being that final date of the year, I can see them push it even further, because the shooting, when they showed the shooting, you only saw like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Because probably if you look longer at it, you're like, wait, this Far Cry feels great. And you see that immediately. And this, you're like you're shooting these mechs. They have a health bar. Seemed like pretty bullet spongy. And that there were just some things off. And the one thing in that trailer where you like open this sort of battery sort of thing and then rip that out, and then you see the cutscene where the camp has been taken over. I was like, wow, this is really Far Cry. We only missed like someone with a flag waving that they finally captured the base. But
that would be so funny if they had like just a reskinned version of that where they're just waving like a tree branch or something.
And they were like talking about the skill tree, and it's like, oh, you can advance your stealth mechanics and your firepower. It's like there's nothing new in this game. It's all been done before. The only new thing is that it's with the blue people, and and also people are already speculating. Oh, I hope we can ride this mount and this mount. I think they showed like the ground mount and the flying mount, and I think that's gonna be it. So I don't know. I think the most exciting part will be like exploring this world, finding new biomes, and finding hopefully tribes that have some interesting story. But seems like we're mostly fighting the humans or some creatures. I think the creatures might be the most exciting part. But I don't know. I want to see more, but it really feels like they either need more time. That's why they are not like giving people hands-on or something. Or I don't know. There's something off with the game. They don't want people to play it or something.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. This is one I'm going to be looking at very closely because I feel like there's something there that, like you're saying, they're keeping close to the chest. Whether that's because there's something amazing to show or what, I'm not sure. So, I mean, to quickly blast through, so we both made a ton of content about Assassin's Creed, Mirage, and Nexus, and Creed Jade. There's just a ton going on there. In general, I thought everything that they showed looked very, very impressive. Not to like rehash too much, but the one thing was at the very end of the AC Mirage gameplay sequence, they show him like above the assassination target, and then he sort of teleports to the 3 characters that he quickly assassinates. Some people said, well, that's like, it's presented as though it's an animus glitch because he's moving so quickly, he's assassinating people, and it kind of glitches out, so it looks like he's teleporting, but he's not. And to that, I would just say, I don't think it really matters because it still looks like he's teleporting. However they justify that narratively, in my view, doesn't really matter. It will just take me out of it. So those types of moves I probably won't engage with when I'm playing because I would rather it be a little more grounded. But other than that, I thought everything they showed was pretty impressive. How did you feel about all the Assassin's Creed stuff?
I think it's we of course saw to talk about Nexus and Jade first. I thought Nexus was like interesting where they showed the CGI trailer, and I can already I already have some red flags where it's like, how is this going to play when I'm actually like in this freaking with this headset on? Because they have some things in place for when you're like afraid of heights or other things. I think being able to show your hidden blade like that will, I don't think will get old. Like just doing that all the time, that will be fun with the Oculus controllers. But apart from that, I don't know. Like I think the Cassandra levels usually they seem more combat focused. I think the interesting part though is that she has a hidden blade in the game. It takes place 20 years after Odyssey, so that's like very interesting, because in the crossover event it was like 400 years later where she went to like Egypt and had it. So I'm not sure if they're like, well, how are they going to explain that? I'm curious if we actually find that out. So I do think like if you're an Assassin's Creed fan and just want to learn more about the lore and have a new story with Ezio, like that's gonna be cool, of course. Seeing Cassandra again, Connor is of course also in the game. But I'm not sure about the gameplay, and the fact that they did not show it gives me like kind of worries me, right? Where it's like, okay, you can make this cool trailer, and yeah, the idea on paper is cool, but how will it be to play? So I'm kind of like holding my fingers crossed it's actually fun.
I agree. I thought it was really weird that, and every VR thing does this, and it drives me crazy. I understand it's really hard to communicate what a VR experience is going to be, but like we even just had the Apple showcase where I thought they showed pretty clearly what you can expect to see and do. And for some reason, video games are just terrible at doing this. And maybe it's because in order to get it working VR, the quality of the graphics has to plummet. And so they just didn't want to show like really crappy graphics and be like, no, but it looks great in VR. They just didn't want to do that. So they did this pre-rendered cutscene thing, but it always drives me crazy because it doesn't look quite right. It's like this weird, like stumbly animation as somebody's jumping over a crate. So yeah, I totally don't know. But as I said in my video, I think that this thing is going to be like a puking factory. It's just going to make you so sick. Oh man, it's gonna destroy me, but I will play it for everybody's amusement.
I think most people will be watching this on YouTube, like have someone like play through it and then still get the lore things and then move on with their day. I think that's gonna be it for most people. Jade, though, I think they only showed very little during the presentation. You also got to see more of that, right? Because so they showed a bit more gameplay behind closed doors. Kind of weird that they didn't show it here, because if you like search Assassin's Creed Jade on YouTube, you can the whole game or like the whole demo for iOS or like alpha it was has basically leaked. But I'm like cautiously optimistic about that. But it's I think like the game looks insanely good for iOS and Android. It's basically Odyssey on your phone, of course, set in China. They are doing some like I'm like of course really hyped for like the sort of twist and things they are tweaking in for the RPG sort of formula where you have like loadouts from the start already, and weapons are linked to loadouts. So for example, if you have a sword and a bow, you can with one touch like switch between them, and then also when you're like equipping the bow, you immediately equip gear for the archer playstyle. So I think that's really cool how you can like switch in combat and then actually do damage with your bow instead of only doing damage with your bow if you have like archery gear. So there are like small things like that. So there's like a closed beta coming for it in the summer. You can like sign up at Assassin's Creed Codename Jade. Still Codename Jade. Like, can you guys not? What is happening? Why is there no name for this yet? That's kind of weird. But codenamejade.com, Assassin's Creed codenamejade.com. You can like sign up there, iOS, Android. And I hope that I'm invited and that we can actually talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I still think it's going to be like a fun game, but I do think because there are like multiple ways to upgrade everything that there will be like a point where you either have to pay up or grind a lot. But
yeah. I mean, it's a NetEase or a Level Up. What's the studio called? Level Infinite.
Level it's 10 cents basically.
Yeah. It's a 10-cent game. It's going to be monetized out the ass. Buckle up. I mean, it looks great, but let's not kid ourselves. However, as far as a mobile game goes, It seems wildly impressive. There's no other way of putting it. If you're just listening, do yourself a favor, look up that gameplay that they showed in the trailer, and I mean, it's wild that this thing is running on a mobile device. So props to them for that. It's just very interesting. And then Mirage.
And then Mirage. So I thought for one, the story trailer, really cool. Really cool. And I thought that it was cool that they're like these characters that like they're some friends from Basim's like past that are really like questioning the beliefs of the Hidden Ones. So I think that it could be like create some cool dialogue and moments in the story where Basim is of course struggling with the fact that he is like turning into Loki. So he has this internal struggle. Then he is like probably going to be a puppet for the Hidden Ones to take everyone out. And then his friends are like, what the heck are you doing? This is not what freedom is. You're just chasing people that and yeah. So I think they set up an interesting story. So I think it will already be cool to play through that story. Then seeing the gameplay, did you like remember the royal demands from the Wrath of the Druids DLC for Valhalla? There was like one of the systems with like the bird cages that you could like go to and then pick up like some missions. It's the same team, of course, that is now doing Mirage, and they basically brought that system to Mirage with the contract board. So I thought that was very interesting. But of course, it seems more fleshed out this time. So we saw that during the demo, of course. I think it's great. I really think they're doing the best they can with the tools they have to make this an old school AC game. Wish we've seen more of the combat though, instead of just like a parry and a takeout and then run away. Does make sense that you will play that way, but I'm like curious what like Basim's moves will be in combat, because in the trailers they show like cool fights, but we did not see that in the gameplay. I am kind of worried though about the variety, because we saw Basim basically fully upgraded.
Yeah.
So I am worried that this is it. This is all Basim can do.
And they said that look that we got was after the first like big assassination mission.
But they unlocked everything. They just unlocked everything for the demo.
So it is going to be interesting how progression works over the course of the game, how they lock things away. So I agree. It's also, I mean, the other thing is we're just used to these massive Assassin's Creed games, and this seemingly is going to be much, much more narrow in scope. You're probably going to finish it in a weekend, and for a lot of us, that sounds awesome because it's sort of a return to a focus thing, but it is going to be very different than I think people are used to. So it might feel kind of abrupt when you're playing it. But stylistically, I thought it looked really, really cool. Of course, at the end of the trailer, they immediately toss in the Discover the Deluxe Edition
of course.
spin-off trailer, because you got to have that. But I thought, in general, I thought that this was what people were hoping for. And again, response has been pretty positive. There's only a couple things that people have said that they would like to see tweaked or changed, but I mean, all told, even my thing with the weird teleportation quick move, it's basically the fear takedown from Arkham Knight. And in Arkham Knight, you at least see Batman move quickly between targets, whereas in this, it just looks like it seems kind of like teleports just between them.
It's really like the chain assassination from Odyssey as well, where you like throw the spear and then appear behind the character. Only now you kind of already see where Basim will appear.
It's not a big deal. Like for me, ideally I would cut it, but is it gonna prevent me from like enjoying the game? No.
I am afraid though, and that's another like thing that I'm worried about, that like for this mission, it really seemed like this was probably the right way to do the mission, because everything was lining up right, and these characters, they were standing close to each other. Like I'm afraid that there will be a lot of these groups that are just like conveniently like standing close because they know, okay, you have to use this here, this. So I'm kind of worried that it will be like pretty one-dimensional, and that there will be, sure, you can do it in multiple ways, but for these, especially these smaller missions, that the developers thought of one right path. And if you do it like the other way, it's possible, but they always think, okay, we put these three characters here. Here's he going to do the assassin's focus. Here's going to throw the trap. I hope that there's more variety in that regard.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Speaking of variety, do you want to talk about the thing that totally stole the show?
Yeah, 100%.
That someone here predicted would be here and would be their crowning piece of the show. I mean, it wasn't that big of a mystery. We knew that they were working on this, and it was like, okay, there's one big game that they're gonna be releasing relatively soon, and we haven't seen it announced, so it's got to be probably something like this. But all told, I mean, this thing looked stellar. For those of you just listening, we're talking about Star Wars Outlaws, which is the upcoming Star Wars game from Massive, and it looks massive.
Vision theme.
Yeah,
sure.
They previously have done multiplayer stuff, pretty successful multiplayer stuff, but this time around they're doing something very different. There's a lot of inspiration from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. There's seemingly a lot of inspiration from Battlefront, from
gameplay looks a lot like that in the ship battle.
Yeah. There's just a lot of little nods to a bunch of different franchises. It seems to blend together pretty well. Graphically, I was blown away at how this thing looks. And all told, I mean, this thing just seems very, very compelling. I don't have a ton of negative stuff to say about it other than whoever was playing this was just like obsessed with moving as slowly as they possibly could. It drives me crazy when marketing teams do this. They film the trailer and they just have like the character walk so slow. I'm like, let's be real. You're sprinting in there. You're talking, smashing Y.
I mean, I'm happy because there was like this speeder bike like blazing through this village that we probably would have missed if it was like an actual player.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just to take it all in because, like you said, it looks insane. It's the first, like they're kind of like touting it as like the first open world Star Wars game. And like then seeing a lot of different planets, also some familiar ones, and knowing that we probably have some like open world stuff to do there. I think that's the only thing where they, of course, like this was really, and I just hope that it's not that. I really got, by watching this, the Watch Dogs reveal, the Division reveal.
Yeah.
I kind of got that vibe. But
that's what everyone's terrified of.
Yeah. But it also feels a little different than that because it did not feel impossible, although everything was lining up, of course, perfectly. But still, I think just like having this companion that can also be useful in combat, distract enemies, take out enemies, grab weapons that you can then use. That was also really where the Division sort of things came in. You have like the Seeker Mine in the Division, and the UI for like throwing that, it was exactly the same as for Nyx. The icons for like using different tools and stuff were also really like Division skills. So I thought it was cool that we still saw some things from that series as well. And there were choices. I did not expect that. You can like choose to bribe the Imperial like person there, and what happens if you do. And there were also like ramifications for taking everyone out versus sneaking in, because this person on the comms was like, and did anyone see you? And then you were like, a little bit. And then we actually saw the reputation go down as well. So there are like certain elements in place where your things actually kind of matter. And I think overall, like how, because I could already see me play this, like because I've played like a lot of Battlefront and I always played in third person. Like I just know how well this is going to feel, and having a blaster that doesn't have like any ammo, so you can just, of course you don't want it to overheat, but it just feels like a game to get lost in, like you're playing fluidly. And in Starfield I'm more like probably overwhelmed and like whoa, and there are probably some things that feel fine but are mostly serviceable, while here everything felt very fluid. I love the UI, and it was just very satisfying to see mission complete with that sort of Star Wars lettered format and stuff. So really, really cool.
No, I agree. I get the vision pretty much immediately from this, and I also I just understand what this game is and what it's trying to do. And after this little reveal, if they continue on this, and this isn't just like a total like pull the rug out from under you moment, I can see what you will be doing as you play through this game. It makes sense to me. Starfield, I'm still not really clear. Like, okay, we'll zip around planets, we'll do some missions, do some narrative stuff, work with different factions. Okay, and we fly to planets and build a base and then collect crafting materials, I guess. Like, to me, it still seems very... the gameplay loop is not super compelling, because I like the big budget cinematic stuff a lot, and this Star Wars game seems to have it in spades. But all of this, just to go back to what we initially said, a lot of people saw this and went, this looks too good to be coming from Ubisoft. There's got to be a catch. And I get it. They've burned so many bridges. They've pissed people off so many times by not living up to the expectations they set for themselves. And so I think that, that skepticism is certainly warranted. But if they can pull this off, if they can live up to this standard that they put forward in this trailer, this is going to be huge. I mean, the response to the trailer has been overwhelmingly positive. And the only negatives that people have is that it looks too good to be true.
But on the other hand, Logan, I gotta give them credit. Like, the Division 2 was amazing. Like, just playing through that, even like single player, like just going through these missions or with a friend. I was also stopping and looking at the environments, because I think they are always beautifully done. So I always thought them doing a Star Wars game was exciting, and the only thing they fumbled was the live service part that they don't have to worry about now. So I think it can only like fall flat in terms of maybe the story. It's Navid who did Far Cry 6 story, who's directing that. Of course, we just haven't seen enough of that, and I can also see the open world maybe activities not being that exciting. Because that's usually where Ubisoft also is like, it will be the typical stuff. On the other hand, that's kind of what I felt, for example, in Hogwarts Legacy, because the gameplay was so different. Doing those outposts or something was still fun, even though we've done them many times before. So might be the case for this game as well.
No, I just think that this was so much better than I was expecting it to be. Props to everybody working on this. I hope this thing comes together as we approach the release. When did they say this is coming?
2024. That's what I was going to ask you, because it's still in Ubisoft's financial year. Like, they want to have this out. Like, that was the other large game that we've been talking about on this podcast. So next to Avatar and Mirage. And so that means early 2024. But them not even like saying that here, and the rumblings that we heard, and the fact that they just have to get this right with Lucasfilm, like, also, of course, like having another like finger in the pie. Like, I think it's gonna be very ambitious, and I think next year we will just see it again during Ubisoft Forward with like an October release or something. So then they have, if that happens, Assassin's Creed Red, this Star Wars game, probably something from like the Splinter Cell remake seems about right in that 2024 window. A lot of bangers. It really is. I'm happy that Ubisoft seems to be on the right track again, and again, it's with the single player games.
No, it's a very good time to be a single player gamer. I cannot stress it enough. I was just like 3 months ago, I was like, no, of course the show that's going to blow everybody away is the Sony showcase. Ubisoft will disappoint everybody, and Xbox is probably going to be fine. And then it's just been a total reversal. I've been blown away. Props to Microsoft, props to Ubisoft for keeping all of this locked down. Like it's been described by a lot of people, it's the most E3 feeling week that we've had in years and years and years. And I hope that they can continue to recapture this same feeling, because it gets people excited and pumped up and passionate. And like, this is exactly what you want your consumers, your customers to feel like, to be excited for the future in this way. Jeff Keighley, I thought he had a pretty decent showcase at Summer Games Fest, but there really was not a lot there that was new and totally shocking. It was just a lot of stuff we already knew about. But he said his goal for the Summer Game Fest was to get gamers excited for the future of gaming. And while his show, I don't think really did it, I do think the Xbox and Ubisoft showcases actually somehow managed to to save the summer game shows and gotta give them
everyone
credit.
loved that Skull and Bones song. Like I still hear people like talk about it every day. It's like
they
oh
were
my
there
God.
though. They were there.
Yeah, I was wrong. I'll taking the L on that one. And I think I would have loved a bit of fly in the wall in that boardroom. It was like, we have to do something with Skull and Bones. Oh yeah. That game that we still have to, but we can't explain the game again, right? They cannot explain the game again because then people will be bored. I saw this like band once in like a bar. Should we like ask them to like come over doing a Skull and Bones song?
Do it for $150.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like they were really good. Like I was like really vibing with that song, but it feels so weird for this $70 game to get this presence. I don't think we've ever seen that.
Yeah. The whole thing is
still
just
no
bizarre.
release date.
Still no release date. We're going to get betas, so we'll see that.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so weird. At least it's better than what they did for the day before. Did you see that trailer that they put forward? It's just a race car, like a sports car driving through the city. I'm like, wait, this is for your zombie survival game? Like what? I think they're memeing with us at this point, but no, I thought it was a phenomenal week. Very exciting. I'm pumped for the future, and I don't feel so like
I'm kind of excited for July because not a lot going on, and then
a little breather.
End of August with because we're gonna need it. Starfield, Liza P, Cyberpunk, and then in October it's like. In the 10-day window, you got like Spider-Man, Alan Wake 2, Forza if you're into that, Mirage, of course.
Jesus, there's gonna be
there's still nothing in November, which is kind of wild. That's kind of
do you think these companies know that something is going to be coming in shadow dropped, or do you think it's just an empty month for some reason?
Yeah, we know Call of Duty will likely have a release, but I really think that Avatar, if it was further along, they would have like loved to be in November, but I think December is like the latest date.
There's something fishy.
I can still see that being pushed. But that's kind of our thoughts, I think, on everything Summer Game Fest. I'm happy that we're here and excited because the last couple of years, you always want to like, you expect this, you hope for this, and the last couple of years just did not deliver on that. So happy that it's finally happened, and some great games to look forward to, and also very soon, like Starfield is like 2 months away. Or 3. But
no, it's a great time to be a gamer, folks. It's a great time. As for the show, again, make sure to rate us on any podcasting platforms you might be listening on, or if you're watching this on YouTube, likes and shares are greatly appreciated. We should be back next week. I will have a little baby, but I should be able to swing it. So I look forward to seeing you all then. And in the meantime, everybody stay safe. Have a phenomenal week. And of course, we'll be reading through the comments. Let us know what you thought of the showcases and which games excited you and why. You might just get featured in next week's episode. You never know what could happen.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And get some rest from all the... I mean, maybe I'm talking to myself, but I need it. Although Final Fantasy is coming up.
You've been pumping out those videos, man. You've been...
Yeah.
You need a break.
I'm excited. We're for more episodes to cover all the things going on. So hope you follow us, and speak to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good, everybody. Much love. We'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.
Bye.